Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday to you wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this week's edition of the M&E Thursday Talks, which I know, it's a bright spot in all of our weeks. Just in case you've forgotten, my name is Jack Farrell, and I am the DM&E for Peace project manager at Search for Common Ground, based in the incredibly humid and incredibly sweaty Washington, D.C. Today, I am delighted to welcome Robert Heine, Managing Director of Energypedia Consult, who is going to lead a discussion on IT tools for results monitoring. Just a note, if you have a question during the webinar, you can write it in the question function on your GoToWebinar dashboard, and we will address it once you reach the question and answer section. I am now going to not take up any more of your time and hand over to today's guest, Robert. You're very welcome, and the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Yeah, my name is Robert, and I'm working in this development cooperation sector since 10, 15 years. And in the past, I took care about IT solutions for M&E, some really basic IT solution based on Excel, but also some more advanced. And I will show you now some slides, just also rushing through some options you could have if you decide to use IT tools for M&E. And I give you some technical background, but very basic, but I think it's good for decision making afterwards for you. And then later on, I will also show you live the system which we developed in the past years. So just very quickly, this is who we are. Some pictures are missing, but we are like a small consulting company based in Germany. Our mother company is a non-profit company. It's called Energypedia. It's a Wikipedia for renewable energies. And this is how we came to this IT monitoring collaboration thing. And then we started with the Energypedia Consult daughter as a subsidiary company to fund our non-profit mother company. And yeah. And today it's about IT tools and M&E. And this slide is just a very short, like a snap of possible IT tools you may know already. So these are all logos and names of software, starting from just Microsoft Office, Excel, because you can use it also for M&E, also some proper M&E software for data collection or data management, etc. And like 10 years ago, there was roughly not so much. There was a lot of survey software, data collection software, but not so much M&E management software for log frames, etc., etc. But now in our days, there are quite a few providers of this kind of services and tools. And also Microsoft with Power BI came up with a nice dashboard solution. So right now, there's quite something there for using for monitoring and evaluation. And these are just like 4 key questions. I will just go through with some slides. So the first question is, I think the answer is pretty easy. I think the answer is yes, you use or you should use IT tools for M&E. If you're using emails already, it's an IT tool. So, but like some arguments is, I know that there are still organizations doing a paper pen survey or questionnaire. And for some reason, in some areas, I don't know, maybe it makes sense. But in general, to make a data collection or make a survey with an handheld or on smartphone or on tablet makes sense. And you save a lot of time for data entry, and you can program or code this questionnaire that they are skipping to certain questions, or they check the plausibility of the answers. So it's really good, and it enhances your quality of your surveys if you use IT tools on IT-based questionnaire. It's also very nice for working together in an M&E tool. So for example, if you work in an offline tools, or if you work on pen and paper, you always have to send around something. And if you work together in a web-based tool, you can just work together in it. And you can also do this kind of remote monitoring. So it could be that for some reason you cannot go to some areas or country anymore. But if you use these online tools, you can still work together with a team on the ground and to do monitoring, project management, etc. And of course, most of the tools, or there are special software, but also some general tools that offer this kind of dashboards, overviews, which really supports your management. You can see on one sheet show me all indicators which are off track, or show me some deadlines, show me the reporting deadline, please generate the draft report in Word. All these nice features really make sense and saves time. But of course, there are also some downfalls if you use software. There are always bugs. Software is not perfect. Everybody who works on a laptop knows that some hours a week you just pissed off because of your laptop, your IT, your software. This all happens the same with software for M&E. And of course, if you work online, you need an internet connection. There are some software that works offline and then syncs if you're online again. But for most of the browser-based solution, which works in your browser, this cloud computing, or how you want to call it, you need internet. But internet right now, it's really just a matter of time that you have on every tree in the world internet connection. Of course, you need access to power. Sometimes if you have, this is also sometimes where there are some service software better than the other, because some service software really eats the battery of your mobile device and some really saves more battery of your mobile device. We had this kind of experience when we last did some online service in the field, that with some software, we were able to make a certain number of questionnaires. With the other software, we were able to make more questionnaires with the same handheld device. So there's already a difference sometimes in the software. And of course, we know that the interview situation could be disturbed by having a smartphone between me and the interviewed person, etc., etc. But this is something you can deal with, and you can also do sometimes pen and paper, but then type it in directly into your smartphone, or some questions you do with cards, some questions you do with your smartphone. So it's really possible. And of course, if you have this IT solution developed for you, or you have an IT solution just out of the box from the shelf, you are dependent somehow to these IT providers. But this is more or less true for everything we do in our world now. So at the end, I would say using IT tools really saves money and time. Okay, the next key question is, maybe I just need the IT support for one specific process in the M&E cycle or in the M&E system. So for example, I just divided the M&E cycle to these steps here. So there is typically data collection. This is really what most of the people think when they think about monitoring, is data collection. Analyzing the data, of course, this is then monitoring and evaluation. And then presenting the data, sharing the results. This is then, if you do it internally, it could be this kind of dashboard software, or also social media. And there is some software out there where you can more or less cover the whole process of data collection, data management, data output, if you wanted to tell it in IT terms. So the icons and the logos from the first slide, most of the software is really for data collection. Though you find many, I forgot this Open Data Kit from Google, and you find many solutions for collecting data. There is still, I guess, SPSS, Excel, and some other R or some statistical programs where you can really do analyzing the software. Of course, other systems can do this as well, but if you really want to do statistical analysis, you need the statistical software packages. For sharing the data, for visualizing the data, there are some special dashboard software out there, these Power BI, Tableau, and others. And of course, you can use also for sharing software with Facebook, etc. But of course, Facebook Messenger you can also use for data collection. So there is also with the social media channels, with Twitter, or you can also do kind of polls or surveys. And there's some software that is like really M&E software that covers more or less the whole process from data collection, data analyzing, and showing the data, and then for reporting or having dashboards. And though this is just for like clustering these tools a bit regarding the M&E process. Now I come to some technical aspects. So if you now have to decide, are we going with IT tools for which process and what is the next step? I will just go through some technical aspects, some very basic and some a bit more advanced. The first slide here is just an example, or just will demonstrate the difference between file-based and web-based working. When I mean file-based working, means you work in files, you work in an Excel files, in a spreadsheet, in a PowerPoint, and you send it around. Still, a lot of people are doing it, even if there's Dropbox and other things where you can share files easily and it syncs to all the devices, but still sending around attachments is quite common. And we all know this. I'm still doing it as well, so it's not a shame to do it, but in some processes it can be like replaced with some IT solutions. So for example, if you start to organize your M&E process with sending around attachments like please find our latest report and please do your comments here, and then people doing these comments, adding some more people in the list, and all the people are doing comments and upgrading something, and they attach some more documents, at the end it's more or less a mess. You end up with many different files, many different versions of a file, and you have to compile it somehow. And this is sometimes really mess. Here, for example, if you work at least, I don't know, with files in a document management system, or like something like Google Spreadsheets, or these kind of online offices, or Microsoft 365, I'm not using it, this is why I cannot really pronounce the name. Then you can work web-based, really like in the browser, or at least with files that are in the web and you can edit in the web. And then, for example, this is like an M&E software, and then you just update. You can send around, of course, the link to this tool, but then people work in the tool. And then at least the IT solution supports you by compiling information and not collecting it with attachments and emails. So you can at least compile all your information in one software, and then from there you can, I don't know, do reporting, can download some software as Word file, Excel file, etc. So this is one aspect, is this file-based versus web-based. There's just for you, just think about if you have processes where you have a lot of emails, a lot of attachments, just think about if it could be maybe improved. Then one thing, I think for some it's crystal clear, but for some maybe it's not so clear. What is the difference between a database and Excel? Just very basic. If you create a database, you have to first think about the structure of the data and the relation of the data. So you start to create empty tables with column heads like this is an ID, this is the first name, this is the last name, etc., etc., etc. And then, for example, if you have collect data of people and these people are employees in companies, then you also have maybe data about the company. And now, for example, if this first table with this Anita Berg would be now also having the same table, like the name of the company and the address of the company and more information about the company, and many people in the list would work for the same company, then you have redundancies. Because then, for example, if you change the address of the company, you have to change it in many, many rows. This is why you structure data and databases with keys, with identifiers that then just links that, I don't know, Anita Berg is working for company number one or a company with a abbreviation, and then it refers to another table. In another table, there you have maybe all the company listed. If you change an address for a company, you just have to go to this table to change the address there. Then there's no redundancy anymore. And this is then a quite good approach to creating a database. Think about redundancies, think about all the data you need and how they relate to each other. That means you first think about the structure, and then if the structure is ready, we have these tables like in the backend, and then you start to create content. You start to enter content. In Excel, most of the time, it's a different way around. In Excel, you start with content. In Excel, you have only tables. There is no database. There is nothing in the back. You just start with your spreadsheets in Excel, and you enter data. And then you add one more row, one more column, etc., etc., etc. And I know a lot of projects that started to buy printers for A1, A0 that they can still print out their operational plans, etc. Because in Excel, people normally start with content and they forget about the structure. And this is why you have these big Excel tables, sometimes also these log frames. If you have many indicators, it will be like a big Excel file, and it's not so handy anymore. So Excel is a good solution. I love Excel. I also give a lot of trainings in Excel and I build a lot of tools in Excel. But Excel, there is some extensions and some things that is a bit more advanced where you can simulate databases, but the pure normal Excel, they are just tables. It's not database. And this is just the message of this slide. So if you start, a lot of people start with Excel, and this is good because also for software developers, it's quite nice to get like an Excel file like of the existing monitoring system, because then they at least know what it's all about, and then out of this they can do a structure, they can build up databases and pages, etc. So it's always, I think it's always not bad to start with Excel, because then you know if you come to certain limits where you think, okay, I need a proper solution, or if Excel is a solution for you. So I think Excel is quite nice. You can do a lot of things with Excel, so why not? Then I think online, offline, this slide is pretty old, and every time I present a slide, I think I can delete it by now because everything's online right now. But of course, still there's software you can just install on your PC, and it's just on your PC and it's not online. But the trend is really going to cloud services, to software as a service, where you just work in your browser. And most of the existing tools, they are maybe sometimes installed on your computer, and then you create something you publish online. But a lot of these tools, this survey software, it's all online. You have an account with MailChimp, you have an account with Lime Survey, you have it online on a server, you create questionnaires on the server, you publish the questionnaires on the server, and you collect data with your server. So it's all online. But still, some things are still offline. And of course, for data collection in very remote areas, you need offline tools to collect data and then to synchronize it with the server afterwards if there's a connection again. But at the end, I think in some years, everything will be in the cloud. And don't worry, cloud is just a PC. It's just somewhere else. It's not on your desk anymore. It's on somebody else's desk. And if you trust this person, these companies, there's no reason why not using a cloud solution. But of course, data protection is also an issue. I'm based in Germany, and I worked for like a government organization before, and their data protection was really high on the agenda. So it was, for us, it was totally forbidden to use Dropbox or any other online services which are based in US or which are on US servers or outside of Europe servers. So it's still an issue, and there is nothing for free in the internet. You pay with your data, and you should be aware, and especially if you collect sensitive data, if you do big surveys where people maybe enter their name and some aspects of their life, it's really sensitive. So you should be aware where you store the data, and if it should be maybe on your own server where you have the control and the power about the data, or if you use online tools where then the data is somewhere else, and what they do with the data we don't know, and I think we don't want to know. So especially if you do surveys, I think you have to be aware that it's not your data. And if you do surveys in Europe, and if you interview Europeans, there is this GDPR, and then GDPR applies. Even if you interview a European in Africa, it's GDPR because it's a European person and it's protected by the GDPR. So he owns still his data. So if you put it somewhere else without asking him, you're violating GDPR. So be careful a little bit. Yeah, so this is from like my former company. It was really a no-go if the server were not located in Europe. Then one slide about open source, because I think a lot of these tools are also open source. We also offer open source solutions. And I just one slide about open source, because open source doesn't mean it's for free. The open source just mean that the source code is publicly available and can be modified by third parties. A lot of people doing this. We are doing this as well. We take open source software and we developed Webmo on top of it. And Webmo as such is an open source tool. What the development we did, it's still open source, but you need our server environment to run it. So you cannot just download our software and put it somewhere else. And this is true for a lot of open source software. You can use it, but sometimes there's also a business model around this open source software. And but we also rely on a community. So our software, we use the Wikipedia software. So we use MediaWiki. It's a software made for Wikipedia, and we use it for our Webmo. And we are always thankful if the big community is developing new features, new tools, new upgrades. And this is pretty cool because we are just a small company. I have really 2 or 3, 2.5 hardcore IT developers. The rest are more IT managers. And we are very happy to have this community. We sometimes give some donations. We develop something by ourselves and give it to the community. And sometimes we get something back from the community. So I really like this open source approach, and we only use open source software. Oh, sorry. Okay. And the good thing is of open source software, if you can just download it I don't know, like Lime Survey, a survey software, you can install it on your own server. But then, of course, you have to take care about it. You can hire IT guys that do it for you on your server, and they maintain the server, and they get some certain access to your server. But you can also hire people that just sell the service. So they install the software on their own server, and they just sell you the service to use the software exclusively. And then normally you pay a monthly fee for this. Okay. And now the last question of these key questions, how do I get the necessary tool? I just now have 3 scenarios. I don't know, this is now a summary. So the summary is now really for which process you need it. Is it like a cloud solution? Then you should take care about the privacy and the terms of use. Is it something really in the web, or are you still working with files? And is the database or file or Google spreadsheet is maybe enough? Then, of course, the budget. So if you take care about all the IT stuff by yourself, you need IT skilled people, you need a server, and then you have, of course, running costs. And this is maybe more expensive than hiring experts or offering this kind of service. And sometimes you maybe check a nice software, but you want to do some adjustments. And then sometimes they don't do it. They just say, this is our software, love it or leave it. Or they do adjustments, but then it's also an issue with coming to budget. So because sometimes IT guys sometimes charge between $500 and $2,000 a day. So then it's also a question of the budget if you can do adjustments and you can customize the software. And introducing something new or something to a team is always a change process. So you should also be aware that even if the software is really easy to use, they maybe still wait for a kickoff meeting, they wait for a training. Otherwise, they say, I was trained, I cannot use it right now. So it's a change process. You always have people who are keen on doing something new and they are aware that it really saves my time and money to use these IT tools. Some say, oh, it's just something new. I'm too busy for a change. And then just 3 scenarios. So you can use available software. Then you do not have any development cost because it's just there. You get professional support, but it's maybe sometimes hard to find the right solution, but a lot of people offer this kind of free trial, 30 days free trial, so you can try it, and others offer demo versions where you can just play around and try it if it's really according to your needs. Then the question is if it's not 100% according to your needs, because also in development cooperation, if you work for different donors, they have different monitoring requirements, sometimes just a different wording. Some have a log frame, objective, outcome, output, activity. Some have target or goal and long-term outcomes, short-term outcomes, etc. So there's a question if the software is flexible enough to fulfill all these requirements, or if the provider can do these kind of adjustments. And then sometimes you pay a license fee, you pay per user, you pay a monthly fee. then of course you pay something, of course. Develop tool yourself. I think this is maybe more than Excel tools, because to really hire a software developer to develop 100% customized web-based monitoring solution, I think it's not needed anymore, because you have a range of software solutions out there, and some of them will fit your needs. So I think to develop something completely by yourself, I think it's not needed anymore. Some years ago it was okay because there was not so much out there, but right now I think there's no need to start from scratch. So I think there's something there. And you have to hire software IT consultants, and they're expensive, and you have to maintain the software by yourself. If there's a browser update and something's not working anymore, you have to do some bug fixing that it works in all browsers again. Then especially Internet Explorer is really not really a browser, but they claim it's a browser, but then you face a lot of problems that it's looking nice in Internet Explorer, in Firefox, in Safari, in Chrome, in, I don't know, Opera. So it's sometimes IT development is not fun. And of course, you need also an own support structure for user support, IT support, etc. So it's to develop something by yourself, it's quite costly. And of course, an option would be to get a tailor-made tool for you. You can start with maybe existing tools, and then they can customize it to your needs. Then it depends if you really buy the software and do customization afterwards. It's maybe your property afterwards, or they do it as a service for you. But it's still also some development cost if you do it by yourself, or you really do a tailor-made web-based database tool. And if it's not open source, there are a lot of dependencies. So yeah. So okay, this was my last slide in this way, though I can now just quickly jump to Webmo. Webmo is a software we developed over the past 10 years. It's based, as I said, on the wiki software. This is why we call it monitoring and collaboration. It's quite flexible. You can use it with different frameworks, log frames or theory of change. It's for single or multi-projects. It supports more or less the entire process. It's easy to use, open source and cloud solution, and servers in Germany. This is also like a quick run through the aspects I mentioned before. So I will just jump to my browser. This is how it looks like, and this is also I told Jack before that we cannot show you customer webmos. We have some customers like the Kofi Annan Peace Center in Ghana and some other NGOs and projects worldwide, but I cannot show them their tools. But I can show you our demo tools. It's like the same, they're using it, but of course the content is different. So our tool, I would say, it's more like a management information system, a monitoring tool, where the focus is on having one or many projects doing something in the development sector. And you can use it as an organization with your whole complete portfolio of all your projects, or you can use it for a single project. And like a single project, it looks like this. So there is like a project sheet just to enter some project information about, I don't know, your objective, description, some key data, some funding if you want, some responsibilities, etc., 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 some tagging, or just some notes for reporting. So some answers to this question: what is your relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, etc. Then it's organized in tabs. So there's one project with many tabs. This is like the dashboard of Webmo. So here you can see the progress in general based on indicators. You can see the progress based on a qualitative assessment of, I don't know, the team leader. And he can base his assessment like on all the information that is there. This is now a log frame web mode, where you have information on the outcome level, on the output level, activities, and you have a lot of attached indicators. So the team leader or the management can check what is the progress on this different level, and they can give an own assessment. The idea behind is that sometimes projects on at least results level, sometimes it takes some time, and if you're like in the first 1-2 year of your project cycle, you may not have on this level a lot of things to show, but maybe on activity and output level, you implemented a lot. So this is why we think it makes sense to have a results-based progress assessment and a qualitative assessment based on different aspects. And then, of course, the heart of it is the log frame. So this is now the log frame version. So here you have the log frame. You can add indicators, you can add outcomes. On outcome, you can attach outputs and indicators, and on output level, you can add activities and indicators as well, etc. So typical log frame, nothing special. And yeah, for managing the project, you can also see the activities in a timeline just to see what is like the status, it's ongoing, completed, and what comes next, etc. We have some reporting features. This is still not the final version. We're still developing some features. So, but for example, you can download your log frame as a Word file. So you can just open it as a Word, and it generates automatically all the existing data in your system, and then it links to Word, and then you have like your Word file with your log frame. And here we can also, but it cannot be done by the user because it's a bit technical, but we can also upload a Word template and reporting template and connect it to the data that you have more or less the final draft of your progress report with the, I don't know, your logo, donor logo, etc. So it's possible. There's a pretty easy, simple document system, so you can attach files to indicators, etc. And this is like an overview page where you can see all the uploaded files. As I said, I'm not really working so much with files, but of course, to prove the progress of an indicator, sometimes you need to upload some PDF files or something like this, and it makes sense to attach to indicators to prove it. Then this tab is just to show you that it's the wiki software. But today it's not about wikis, but Google project wikis or wikis for enterprises. And our software is the Wikipedia software. So you can use it also for project coordination and for collaboration. And here are just some examples. So beside of monitoring, you can do operational manuals, to-do list, team meeting, phone list, all kind of lists. So if you start creating lists with attachment, then this is the better option. And at the end, there's also this kind of feature maintaining your monitoring system. That means this, the system will show you if everything is complete, if your log frame is complete, or if something is missing, if indicators are missing, etc., etc. The software also checked if important data is missing. So if important fields are not filled out, then you can see where and who's responsible. And you can see if the data is up to date. So if people, at least in the last 6 months, updated the information. So just one more sheet, the indicator sheet, because it's also a crucial sheet. And I can also show you, because we're using the wiki software, to operate WebMo is always the same. You click on the edit button, and then the software, the page opens in a form. This is the same if you work in Wikipedia, you click the edit button and you can edit the article. And here it's a database behind, so this is why you have these fields and the form. And what in our experience, this also was experience also with the Kofi Annan Peace Center in Ghana. Like the biggest variety in the M&E system is on the indicator level, because you have many different types of indicators. Sometimes you have indicators very quantitative, where you collect baseline value, or maybe not a baseline value at all. You just have a target value and a current value. Sometimes it's like disaggregated by something, like by gender or by age groups or by regions or by something, by donor sometimes. So on indicator level, where you really collect data, you enter data, there the tool should be very flexible. And we are not as flexible as we want. This is why we are now developing some more indicator types, but they're not ready. But one indicator type we're developing is where the user can define the classes here, female, male, everything by themselves. And they can also upload data sets with Excel or entering it with a timestamp, so you can also see the development over time. And so indicators, for me, I think this is really crucial, because if you have a nice software, but then you cannot really enter your indicators, and sometimes it's really not your indicator, it's the donor indicator. So you have to report to this indicator, and they want to have the data in this level of aggregation, or they want to have it separated by villages or something like this. You have to make sure that the software you're using can store the data according to your needs. And so this is quite crucial. And of course, what people, I don't know, sometimes call the M&E plan or something, like who is collecting the data, when is data collected, what is the source of verification, and some description, and also some action to be taken, and here, for example, also some notes. And this is also, I think, special for our software, because this is then a wiki page. So on all pages we have on which sometimes are based on forms and databases, you can always have a wiki page where you can add, you can insert tables, pictures, videos, graphs, text, everything. You can link to something, link to pages, link to YouTube if you want. So this is also quite nice, because then you can also do some narratives. You can do some qualitative assessments, you can write down some notes, you can link to something else, or this is, I think, quite helpful, because it makes it more flexible. And at the end, you always click on save, and that's it. So you always, you edit something, you click on save, and that's it.
Robert, thank you
Yeah,
very much. I think I'm going to push this towards a question and answer section, just
yeah,
because we're running on a little long. Just a couple of points I think are just interesting follow up before we get to Q&A. I think, yeah, your point about open source information is really interesting for evaluators, and I think we're, as a field, still a little behind that right now. One of the best open source information sources that I've found recently is the DIME Impact Evaluation Unit at the World Bank, which is
yeah.
available through their wiki site. It's really interesting, and I'd encourage people to go take a look. And then one of the points you made on developing your own bespoke tool for your organization, I think this is one of the biggest challenges we have in our field. We are constrained by a lack of resources, but organizations are regularly duplicating and reinventing the wheel and reinventing tools, which I think is a big reflection of our lack of coordination and knowledge sharing. To our audience, we're now opening up today's presentation for questions. A couple of notes about our format for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Thursday talks. You can submit a question in one of two ways, or two ways. The first is through the question function on GoToWebinar, which will allow you to type your question. The second is to click on the hand icon on your GoToWebinar dashboard, which will allow you to unmute your microphone so you can ask your question live. When you do submit your question, we ask you to submit your name and affiliation. And just to note, these talks are recorded and posted on the DM&E Freeze Media Gallery, so you can go back and listen to the recording and continue to learn from the discussion. Robert, one of the questions that's come through quite a bit, because a lot of our audience isn't European-based, isn't sort of global North-based, comes around GDPR. Could you provide a brief overview of GDPR and how it's affected the work of NGOs and the work of international NGOs?
I'm not the 100% GDPR expert, but my experience is that the difference now is that really the people are still the owners of the data, and you always have to check in with double opt-in. You always have to ask people if you can transfer the data to somebody else, and they have more rights now, so they can send you an email and say, please delete everything you saved from me. And that also means, like, for us, if we are a software provider and we do backups regularly, it is sometimes really work to delete a set of data in all our backups, because they have the right now to be deleted, and they have the right to get the information what you collect about the person. So there's a lot of documentation things on your side you have to do, and you have at least kind of a checklist or handbook ready that if you get these kind of questions, you know how to react, because there are some fees on if you're not doing it, but I think in the non-profit sector is not really a big risk. But if you collect data of people, you need their approval that you can store the data, you can do something with the data. And sometimes you have to give them in written, like on the first page of a questionnaire, what you're doing with the data. You have to inform them about them. You have to tell them that we're not giving it to a third party, etc., etc. And sometimes you need a signature of them, or this double opt-in, or you just have to make sure that you're not misusing the data.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think one of the additional elements of GDPR is it's all around personal control. So, for example, if someone contacts you and says, ask for their data to be removed, you have a given time frame to remove and scrub their data from the entire site, as well as being able to provide them with a data history of their interaction with your site, your platform, your project.
Yeah.
We have a raised hand by Judith Gilmore. Judith, your microphone is self-muted. So if you still want to ask a question, please feel free to unmute yourself now. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead because the questions are coming in thick and fast. And the next question comes from Ayam Amalek, and Ayam writes, the challenge of working with field level colleagues is that ICT skills are often limited, and even getting people to use a template or an Excel budget is a challenge. Forcing them to use a wiki system as you propose sounds very difficult. How did you manage that, and how should we manage that?
Yeah, it always depends. So it's true that some software is difficult to use, but I never heard of people attending Facebook trainings. So there is software that can be easily used by everybody. So I would say you should, of course, develop software from a user perspective. So it must be very clear where to enter data, and like in Excel, it must be very clear here you can enter data, the rest is protected, and if he clicks on it, there comes an error message, no, not this cell, the cell next to me, something like this. And the experience with our wiki software, because it's based on a wiki, but it's like really an application we developed. And what I just demonstrated to you is just these two buttons. You have to go to a page, you have to edit the page, you have to do some change, you have to save the page. And our experience is that it works because we hardly do not sell any trainings. So we have always trainings in our budgets and always trainings in our proposals, but nobody at the end is asking for trainings. So in my experience, it's quite simple, but of course there is software out there where you need some skills. So if you give somebody kind of data kits or something and then tell him, please create a questionnaire, there you need IT skills. But to fill out a questionnaire, this should be not a problem anymore. And then it's really up to you to design interfaces that can be easily used by users. And it's possible.
Great, thank you, Robert. Our next question comes from Esther Winslow, and Esther writes, is there a particular tool that you would recommend for organizations that use a lot of qualitative methods because they're working with complexity, i.e. Adaptive monitoring and evaluation methods?
Yeah, it's difficult if you really do qualitative assessments. There was a tool. I was also part of a developer team. It's in kind of a grid system where you can try to capture subjectives and they can describe what they think about something, and they can make up their own scale of rating it, and it was all IT based. But I think if you really do qualitative research and you work with cards and you work with group discussions, at the end you need a system where you can document it, because I think the tool to really conduct this qualitative surveys, this is maybe sometimes with cards, papers, and drawing pictures and just discussing something or playing street theater or something. But I think the documentation, then you should have a flexible tool where you can at least write a lot, you can link, you can upload certain data like videos, graphs, something like this. But the special software for qualitative assessments, I do not know.
Great, and one quick question just to wrap up, and I'm sorry to everybody we didn't get to today. It comes from Sam Diener, and Sam writes, is the data encrypted in Webmo?
Yes, of course, yeah. But we have these SSL certificates that encrypts the data coming from the end user to the server, and on the server it's encrypted as well, yeah.
Great, well, thank you, Robert, and just like that, another Thursday Talk in the books. Thank you, everyone, for joining this edition of the M&E Thursday Talks. The recording will be posted online on our Thursday Talk Media Gallery later today. So please feel free to return to it, share it with your colleagues, and continue the discussion online in the comments. Thank you again, Robert. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another exciting webinar, and we hope to see you online then. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week.